What do you think would happen if a species evolved a powerful, undeniable craving for an incredibly nutritious and seasonally available food, and then a company figured out how to duplicate that food, make something that tasted extremely similar, only turned out to be extremely toxic for that species? What I'm saying is that there'd now be a toxic substance and that species would want it all the time. Hi, my name is Edmeades and I'm the founder of WildFit, and today let's talk about sugar. Sugar is in everything. I mean everything. Like when I first started really looking into sugar, I was shocked to find how many things it was in. In fact, I gave up sugar for a while on a little challenge. I thought, I'll take a break from sugar. I came home one day, I made myself some lunch. I was ready. The lunch was sitting there. The lunch was some pasta with some tomato sauce, all healthy, organic, good stuff. And then I took a mouthful of it and I almost spat it straight out because it just tasted wrong. I thought maybe the tomato sauce had gone off. So I picked up the jar. I looked at the date to say, hey, is this, maybe it was out of date or something. No, perfectly in date. I smelled it, smelled okay, tasted a little bit, tasted okay, but something wasn't right. Something wasn't right. It was really sweet, like really sweet. And so I started looking at the ingredients. And here's what I found that shocked me. I mean, truly shocked me. Sugar was the #2 ingredient in a beautiful organic tomato sauce. Let me ask you, if you were making some tomato sauce at home, for your pasta or for a lasagna or a pizza or something like that, would you take some tomatoes and chop them up, a little garlic, some onion maybe, some basil and oregano, and then 2 tablespoons of sugar? No, you wouldn't. But are you curious at all as to why a food manufacturer might do that? They do it because sugar has some really important roles in the body. One of them is that sugar triggers hunger. This is an evolutionary protection of our species. You see, our species has spent a long, long time doing everything it could to avoid starvation. Starvation's been the #1 cause of death of our species right up until the modern times. And so what that means is that when fruit suddenly came out onto the trees and was available to us, the idea was if we ate a little, our body would be triggered to keep eating even if our stomach got full, because who knew how long it would be there for? And also, what season's coming next? Winter, probably an entire problem around getting food. And so if we didn't eat enough now, we might not survive the winter. So sugar triggers in us appetite. And so sugar manufacturers put it in everything. Out of the something like 60,000 different foods that are available, packaged foods that are available in our shopping mechanism today, something like 70% of them have some form of sugar, corn syrup, or other refined sweetener. And we are getting addicted. In fact, it's even worse than that, because from a marketing perspective, the sugar manufacturers and the food manufacturers that are using sugar in this way, they know what they're doing and they know we're catching on. And so what are they doing? Ever better advertising. All the time with the manipulation almost to the level of hypnosis to get us to feel good about their products. One of my favorite examples, it was a viral video that some friends of mine sent to me. You don't watch every viral video that gets sent to you these days, but when it arrives the 3rd or 4th time, you got to tune in. And this video starts off and it's gorgeous. What happened is somebody went out and purchased all kinds of CCTV footage from bank machines and street cameras and store cameras, all kinds of, and they licensed it and created this one long video of people doing the most incredible things. I'm talking about the bank machine camera that caught the person who dropped their wallet, and a person came up right behind them and handed them their wallet. And then the little old lady who's trying to cross the street in the snowstorm and none of the cars will stop. And then all of a sudden these 2 young men come along and they stop the traffic and take her across the street. And it's story after story after story that just fills you with joy and love. And these days, let's be clear, watching the media, watching the news is generally more scary than wonderful, right? But this video is the opposite. It just brings back one's hope in humanity. And at the peak of your positive feelings, Coca-Cola. No kidding. What are they doing? Well, in psychological terms, they're doing something very similar to the Pavlovian dog experiment. What they're doing is getting you to link an emotional experience with a physical stimuli. In other words, they're trying to make you feel good about their product before you even buy it, before you even drink it. How about the cereal manufacturers? Here's what's really scary. The cereal manufacturers will pay grocery stores to keep their sugar-laden, plastic toy-filled cereals at child height view. Why? Because in marketing, there's a term, a technical term, it's called pester power. And the marketing companies know that there's a price that parents are willing to pay to end pestering. And so they put the sugar-laden, brightly colored, plastic toy giveaway cereals right at the height that your children can see it. And so the pester power begins. But let me ask you something really careful here. What do you think the number 2 ingredient is on just about every breakfast cereal? Sugar. Refined sugar. It's right there on the label. And it doesn't matter that in bold print on the front it says fortified with this vitamin, fortified with these essential nutrients. Yeah, but the number 2 ingredient is sugar. Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. What's the number 2 ingredient? It's not sugar. Because the number 1 ingredient is sugar. We are living in a time when our entire Western world is facing a massive healthcare crisis. And at the root of that crisis is refined sugar. Just in case you're starting to think that I'm feeling a bit like a conspiracy theorist to you, here's what came out in late 2016. The sugar industry in the 1960s realized that studies were coming out that demonstrated that sugar was related to heart disease. Now this would clearly be bad for business. And so they got their lobbyist. I'm not talking about their marketing department. I'm not talking about their sales department. Their lobbyist. In other words, the people charted with the responsibility of influencing the educators and legislators to increase the demand for their product, right? So they went to their lobbyists, and this is what their lobbyists did. They hired 2 Harvard researchers, and they paid them to conduct a study that would connect fat with heart disease instead of sugar. These scientists were paid in today's terms about $50,000 to do this study. That study was then picked up and published in the New England Journal of Medicine. That basically made it lore. It just made it industry knowledge that the problem was fat, not sugar. $50,000. $50,000 is what they paid. And millions and arguably billions is what they made. In fact, if you consider this scary statistic, that in the 1970s, there was almost nobody under the age of 40 that had type 2 diabetes. In fact, back then, it was called adult onset diabetes because young people didn't get it. Today, in the United States, there are something like 20 million young people with type 2 diabetes or in pre-diabetic condition. That is a massive change, due in no small part to $50,000 to 2 Harvard researchers. Let's be clear, you couldn't do that today. The New England Journal of Medicine is very clear. Now you have to disclose your funders before you can publish your study. But things were different back then. And so let's talk. Let's talk about this, because right now we're in a situation where if you decided you wanted to reduce your sugar intake, it would be very difficult because it's everywhere. It's in everything. And it's also been conditioned into us. I mean, there are certain things that are just part of life, right? I mean, what could be more American than apple pie? Except for the fact that apples come from Kazakhstan. You see, the marketing of these things has been designed to link things to seasons. Of course, you have to have candy at Halloween. You gotta have a candy cane at Christmas. You gotta have chocolate at Easter. Really? Do you? Because if you gotta have that stuff, pretty soon you might need to have insulin control. So what I want to challenge you to do is spend 7 days with me. 7 days to go on a little no sugar challenge. It doesn't mean being done with sugar for the rest of your life, but what it does mean potentially is increasing your consciousness about the way sugar enters your life. How about that? Because right now what's happening for most people, and by most people, here's an interesting statistic. 154 pounds. Do you know how heavy that is? 154 pounds is a person. The average American, and I'm only using Americans in this case because we have this statistic, I'm going to suggest to you that it's exactly the same in Fiji, in Canada, in the United Kingdom. It's the same in most of the Western world. But the statistic in the United States is the average American is eating 154 pounds or over 70 kilograms of sugar. Isn't that interesting? And one more thing I want you to know. Remember we talked about the evolutionary design to protect you from starvation? You see, the other thing that sugar communicates to the body, the sugar communicates to the body and says, hey, if fruit is in season, if fruit is on the trees, then the next season that's coming is winter. And if winter is coming next, what we had better do is find powerful ways of storing water and nutrition in our bodies. And so sugar stimulates us to store fat. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is consider taking a 7-day sugar holiday with me so that at the end of that 7 days, if you decide to have sugar, you can do it completely consciously with knowledge, knowing that you're doing it in a mindful way. Or maybe you want to give it up entirely. So join me and Mind Valley for a free mini quest, a quest to create consciousness around sugar, a 7-day opportunity to change your relationship with sugar right now.